right.
politics now?
Politics. Politics.
Mm,
Politics. What's up with the
politics.
politics?
I don't even know what's going on in politics today. I try not to watch politics.
Mm.
I try to stay out of it.
Well, we can't stay out of it.
Mm.
We can't stay out of it.
Electoral
How we gonna
electoral
be
college.
informed? Oh, I'll do away with it.
Can we start a petition just to do away with electoral college? Can we
How
start a
how?
petition to deal away with gerrymandering? Can we
Oh,
can we start
please.
petitions to start having all these little fake um hurdles put in place so that we can really have a system that worked like it was supposed to be?
Right. The democratic system
Is the
as it was
system that we
designed to
have that was
be.
designed back in the 1700s the system that should be um, basically not amended or not fixed for us today? As technologically advanced as we are, should we
Hmm.
be living on a system that's so antiquated?
I agree. I think it is too antiquated. And I don't really like the electoral college. I believe the popular vote should be the same way we elect president. Everything else is popular vote. When we decide whether or not we're going to have a new tax, it's popular vote. When you decide whether or not you can smoke marijuana in California, it was popular vote. So I don't know why they're sticking with the electoral college. Well, okay, I'm sorry, let me take that back. I know why they
Oh,
sticking
okay.
with
I'm
it.
just saying, 'cause
I know why
I
they
can
sticking
explain. I
with
ain't got
it
the answer for that.
so that they get the final say
Hmm.
so.
Hmm.
And I'm not with that.
Hmm. Yeah, I heard someone ask about like the politics and stuff being controlled by the government, in a sense that, excuse me, commercials being controlled, or
Hmm.
news more specifically. Let me get this right.
It's all fake news.
Yeah, being controlled by the government, and it was Noam Chomsky. Have you ever heard that name before? Oh
Mm-mm.
yeah, he's a professor at MIT. Basically, cut the dude in half, saying that the news is not controlled by the politics. The news is controlled. I don't know if you know this because I had to learn it. The news is controlled by the corporation.
By which corporation?
Every corporation,
But
whoever has the most money, corporation.
the whole idea is
Hmm.
that if corporations are opposing one another,
Hmm.
so basically you're saying the corporation with the most money is
Hmm.
controlling the spin of the news.
Skippy. And then what happens with
Mm.
that is then the politicians go in and take out of that pot, and that's who they endorse because the corporations are giving them the money. And that's how the
Mm.
system really, really works. If you want to dive into it, it's not like we think. Oh, you have a mayor or you have an elected official, and they represent you, and they going up there and they
No, no, no.
spamming.
I don't think that.
Well, that's what we're
To a certain
told.
extent.
That's
Well,
what we're told.
I believe that there are some salmon who are going against the stream.
Mm.
I believe that. But I think for the most part we understand that politicians are being swayed by lobbyists, and the
Hmm.
lobbyists are representing these corporate multi-million these corporations, and they're getting the politician to enact laws that have been essentially bought through lobbyists
Hmm.
that benefit the corporations and not the general population.
It's not supposed to. They have this spiel about this is what I'm going to do for you guys when I get in office, and you got to do your fingers like that. I might start running because I got that part down pat. Do this. Say when I get
Because
in
you don't want to
office,
point.
and you got to
You
use
don't want to
you got to
point, but you
it's
need
keyboard.
to
It's right.
emphasize.
It's like secular music. All you need in hip hop is to say a couple poppy champagnes and a couple jewelry and a couple
And a
benzos
and a beat.
and a beat.
And a beat.
It's the same with politics. You got to do this, and you got to say the American people, and you got to
And you
say,
got to look into the camera. And you have to
man,
not crack a smile while you do it. You need to look sincere.
Big Joe, Big Harp said, "Dirty Joe and AOC, Trump. Come on, it's all a mess. No popular vote. So you only want Texas, Canada, New York, and
That's not
Florida.
Canada. That's California.
My bad, my bad. I'm tripping on that one. Texas, California, it's that sip. I need another sip. Texas, California, New York, and Florida to decide the election.
So
No,
are you thinking that only those four states really get to control because of the mass population that are centered
yeah,
around
you
there?
have to explain that a little more because I understand a little bit enough. I'm not into politics enough to know why Texas, California, New York, and Florida would control, other than something called flip states, where they're on the verge of being either or, depending on how they get to the majority swayed. But he also made a comment on the Green Deal. Any thoughts on AOC's Green Deal? You know anything about the Green
I
Deal?
do not. What is that? Let me
Yeah,
search.
that's her ability. She's got this. She's got the. Let's look it up so we can be
On the same
on the
page,
same page.
literally.
Yeah, but she's got this movement. The Green Deal is a proposed
Oh,
stimulus
Alexandra. Oh, I like them.
program
Okay.
that aims to address climate change and economic inequality. The name refers to the New Deal, a set of social and economic reforms and public work projects undertaken by President Roosevelt in
Mm,
response to the Great Depression. So
okay. So she's
she's trying to get it started up.
alluding to the New Deal by calling it the Green New Deal. All
Hmm.
right. And what is her purpose?
It aims to address climate change and economic equality. So basically, I
I like
guess
it.
I guess people that are against it would say this is more leaning towards socialism, if you will.
You
And
think?
well, because some of the things that she wants is for people to get a certain allotment per month for the government.
Well, we were talking about that with the
Mhm.
same.
Yeah,
Well, I have no problem with that. And I think you and I were talking about that. I have no problem with people who are, first of all, the poverty level is a joke. When people say they're living below poverty, we have to understand what that poverty level is. The poverty level is considered to be like $14,000 for like two people. How are two people living on $14,000? How are you call? So if I make 15,000, I'm above the poverty level. That's a joke. So I think that needs to be revisited. And I think once we have a poverty level that is really true and accurate based upon the various costs of living in the area where those people live, then I am totally with helping those people that are below that level. Because if we don't invest into people who do not have,
yeah.
we're basically weeding out the middle class as it is now. We have a whole lot of have-nots, a whole lot of I have way too much, and we're the middle class is shrinking as we know
Well, they
it.
teach you that in the military. You're only as good as your weakest man, and that's the way it should be in
That's a
in
good
in
point.
in the civil community as well. You're only as good as your weakest man. I know that I've heard about the Jewish population, and that somebody mentioned to me that was Jewish, that you rarely see Jewish people that are homeless, unless it's something like some sort of mental disorder or something like that.
Right.
But you
Because
never,
they take care of their
because they
own.
come down and they swoop down and they scoop them up.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Because they don't want they refuse to see their people ignored and abandoned.
Now, I like the fact that they do that. I don't necessarily like the fact that it's done for just that religion, culture, or belief. I get
Mhm.
why it's done because you can't do people that don't believe in your system. Otherwise, they're just
Mhm.
going to poo poo on your system and make it back. But I just believe we should have a system that makes it so that way nobody is having to steal, you know what I'm saying, or
Right.
fight and kill for
Right.
survival. And that seems like what it's going
Right.
to be.
Right.
But it was,
And I think some of our legal laws, our laws need to be revisited
of course,
because we have a system that encapsulates somebody once they've been to jail. We say, "Oh, you're reformed, we let you out now," but we've put so many roadblocks for you, we've actually pushed you back into a
that's
life of
designed
crime.
that way. It's designed that way. It
Yes,
needs to be
it's a
restructured.
it has a
Hmm.
revolving door system. So yeah, absolutely. So I'm all for getting us some.
Y'all for the green?
Yes.
AOC green?
Well, I didn't say I'm all for the AOC green. What I was going to say
The
is
new green deal.
I can't even say I'm completely for that because I haven't read it. But
Okay.
what I'm saying is I do agree that climate change and social justice or economic justice needs to be revisited.
Do you think climate change was here? Now, I want to get back to this, but it was mentioned that population in the four states would dominate the vote. So mass population in those states
Oh, I
would control
disagree.
it. And that's why, well, when you think about it, it makes sense because that's why gerrymandering is set up. So that way this state is broken up. There's a million people here, and then over the border, there's two people. And so they won't have.
But the electoral vote is what makes that system means certain states are controlling. But if you have a general vote where everybody's counts equally, it doesn't matter if 50% of the population is in California and the other 50% is spread out the other 49 states. Your vote counts and my vote
Well,
counts.
it does though, because like let's say for instance, Montana, which I don't know the population, I can probably Google it, but compare it to New York, California, if we all have equal power to vote,
Mhm.
what if we want something with our highways and they're like,
No,
well,
no,
we
no,
don't.
no. I'm talking about just for president. Just for president. Getting rid of the electoral college for
Oh,
president.
for
Just
presidency.
for president.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think
You're
that
talking about
what
okay, okay.
right. I'm not talking
The
general laws
senators.
like no,
Okay,
no, no.
okay,
I'm not
okay, okay.
talking that
Got it, got it.
because even the senators we elect by general vote.
Okay.
I'm saying just the electoral college, which is only controlling who gets president. That's the only thing electoral college is ever used for. If we get rid of the electoral college, then we get away from the fact that California is a swing state because we carry more electoral votes than all the other states.
Mm.
Yeah.
The Electoral College consists of 538 electors. A majority of 270 electoral votes is required to elect the president. President, actually.
Hmm.
Your state's entitled allotment of electors equal to the number of members in its congressional delegation, one for each member in the House of Representatives, plus two for your senators.
Exactly. And we're a swing state because we have more senators. So
Yeah,
like if you yeah. So we're a swing state. Florida is one of those uh huge swing states. Ohio is one of those huge
right,
swing
right,
states.
right.
So if we did general vote instead of electoral, which is like I said, electoral college is only used for presidents.
Do you think felons should be able to get out and vote now? Because I know that was something that
Yes,
they overturned in Florida, and now they're supposed to be able to get out
I think they
and
should.
yeah, felons.
If we think that you are rehabilitated enough to be out among the general population, why should we dehumanize you and tell you, okay, you can go work, you can pay taxes, but now you can't decide how your tax money is spent?
Yeah, that's good comments. Very good comments. But you're right. I do know that part of the electoral college and gerrymandering is just set up so that way the politicians can finagle it any way they want because it's like, okay, look, we understood that the popular vote was X, but we're going to choose Z because we have more whatever experience, education, or we have
Mhm.
more insight as to what needs to be done.
Mhm.
That's bullshit. That's
Mhm.
straight up because what they're saying is we got you guys up to the point where we don't it's not going to benefit us.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And is there really any reward in a real in other words, I guess in a real society, do you feel that if they were honest politicians and did what they said and was ousted if they didn't, would that be a good society for us? Would it be too
Mm.
much for us to handle? Would it be too honest or too pure of a society? Will we all turn
I
into
don't think so.
snitches? Would it be where's Eddie Griffin from? Would it be
Mhm.
Mayberry? Would it, you know what I'm saying? Would it be too false of a society if everything was handled from a point of reality? Because what's happening now is the reality is changing the narrative, so that way you can lie as much as you want, and we know it's a lie, but it's okay.
Mhm.
Get on to the next one, and that's a horrible place to be in.
Well, I'm actually reading right now Long Walk to Freedom, which is Nelson Mandela's biography. And I think I'm in chapter 9, so I'm very early in the book, around page 70, page 80. And one of the things he's talking about is how apartheid was allowed to grow beyond, expand into politics. And one of the things he talks about is how people would be elected and they would pass laws that appear to do one thing, telling you this law is doing X, Y, and Z, but it's not doing X, Y, and Z. It's doing S, T, and U. And because those officials were allowed to get away with that and pass laws, and they completely were doing away with democracy, apartheid was able to continue, and subsequently he ended up going to jail for 26, 27 years, right? For standing up against it. It was to the point where they would do things like you can't have a strike if you're striking for political reasons.
Mm.
Not even a peaceful protest. You can't gather in crowds of more than 50 people if you are complaining about one of these 6 laws that we've just passed to subdue you. So I think going with what you're saying is yes, when people get into office and they say, you've elected me to do X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to do S, T, and U. We need to be able to get rid of them, because why are they there if not to do what they said they were going to do
and represent us?
It's like if I get married to somebody, say, okay, we've had these conversations about what our marriage is going to be like. We get married, like, all that stuff I said I was going to do, I didn't change my mind.
It's called the okie doke.
But you can't. It's called the okie doke.
It's called the okie doke.
But you can't. You can't leave. Really?
Yeah, you're stuck. It's a fox in the hen house.
So no, and I think until we start holding people accountable
for
doing what they say,
that's the deal. Is because we as individual society don't know how to hold those people accountable. We have a 25 cents approach as to what we can do. Call your congressman, fill out these papers. But that's why we have these elected officials, so they can represent us and tell us, this is what you need to do. Like Bernie Sanders says, Michael Moore says, in order to, have yourself represented, come together, be here, do this and do that. But I did want to mention on the Electoral College again, is the first reason the founders created the Electoral College is basically, they say it's hard to understand. And I've heard that it's kind of hard to explain, but the founding fathers were afraid of direct election to the presidency. They feared a tyrant could manipulate public opinion to come into power. Now you can get crickets on that. I ain't got the cricket sound because he's already there.
You got a sound I want. Turn this thing on.
Turn it on.
You got a sound I want.
Because he's already there right now. There's a fox in the hen house, and the people that are there that elected to respect us can't even get him out.
What the fuck is that?
Okay, it's all good. You got that's good. That's good. He's in there. So I get it, and I don't want to turn this into a Trump hate show or anything like that.
I don't hate him because that's too much energy to expend on somebody.
But
I'm very displeased.
Anybody in any kind of office or any kind of situation of power looking to create discord amongst the community and people that are out, just doing their everyday, get him out of there. I forget everything that he said, he stand for, and he's done. None of that. I'm not even worried about that because that's a whole year's worth of conversation. But the point of the matter that he is not bringing the community together. So I don't care what he's doing.
But I know you said forget all the other stuff, but there's one thing I can't. Well, there's two things actually that I can't forget. One is, you're talking about sowing the divide. That is so huge for me. America, what does the Statue of Liberty stand for? What does it say?
It's different now, though.
But it should not be. It should not be. We have countries that are around us where Mexico, they don't have free education. So if you have a child and you can't afford to pay for that child to go to school, you are sentencing your child to a life of poverty.
They don't have free education in Mexico?
No.
So you got to pay to go to school?
Yes.
Regular school?
Regular school.
Or teach your kid at home?
But if you don't have an education, how are you going to do that?
I get it, but
so it's like poverty begets poverty begets poverty. How do you break a cycle of poverty if you aren't given education?
Well, thank God, we weren't born in that situation. But exactly. I would like to think.
But my compassion, as a human being,
fight your way out of that bubble.
Because let me put myself in that person's shoes.
Sure.
If I had 3 children that I could not send to school, and I know that if I don't change my circumstances to better them, that they are sentenced, my grandchildren, then my great-grandchildren are sentenced to the same life of poverty, I, as a mother, would do whatever I had to change that.
Yeah, but wouldn't you not have kids in the first place, though?
Okay, but...
Right?
Okay.
That's what I'd be thinking.
Okay.
I wouldn't even have kids in the first place if I
now
felt that I didn't have an opportunity.
So then all the poor people stop having kids. Then what happens? Somebody's going to always be poor.
Well, I'm saying there's got to be a tail end to that ability for them not to afford. So it would be the bottom rung of the people just making it over to be able to pay that would have the kids, and they say, okay, what it is. I'm not saying don't have kids.
Mike said, if don't have the baby, if you can't feed the baby.
There it is. I mean, that's a choice. That's a choice. Yeah, that's a choice. Not like a Kanye choice, but that's a real choice.
So then what life are you living? Are you saying, okay, now I can't get married because getting married means I might get pregnant, I might have kids, or I can't have sex because that might mean getting pregnant. It might mean what? So that situation, and if you can't afford condoms, you know what I'm saying?
I don't know. Like I said, it
Okay,
gets thick.
that is
It
thick.
gets
Well, okay,
thick
we're gonna leave
because
that one. We're gonna leave that one. We're gonna
okay,
leave that one. Go to
okay,
another one. I
okay.
got
Because it
another one
looks
for
like
you.
we got some more question about the popular vote. You count if it's a popular vote. That's Arizona. So going back to the other comment.
Yeah, everyone counts if it's a popular vote.
Let's see. Let's see. I guess the comment was, where was it at? Of course they do count in Arizona. Says you don't count. Harvey said that was Robert. Harvey says you don't count if it's a popular vote, and he says I do. And then we scroll on down. Let me see what this is going on right here. Not a popular vote. One person, one vote. I like to know what that conversation is about. But California and
Yeah,
New York have the largest population,
that is true.
and they are 70% liberal. So if you're not liberal, he's saying, Harvey is saying to Robert, and I don't know, but in that case, yours, mine wouldn't matter. So if
Yeah,
you're
but
not,
that's just saying that's like saying if you're in California, you're automatically liberal. Okay, if you're in California, you're liberal, and you pack up and you move to Montana, it doesn't matter. It's not going to change your views. You're still liberal. You're going to vote
well,
liberal regardless of where you
kinda,
are.
kinda. Because when
And
you
and birds
move,
of a
you
feather tend to flock
sure
together.
that's my other point. Because you kind of tend to change depending on what's going on. I mean, if you're driving
Not
and you're living in a city
necessarily.
environment, LA, and then like you said, you're a certain way liberal, whatever, and then you move to Montana where everything is country, you kind of have to say certain things are going to be different. From I guess from a techie to a farmer, your views are going to change if you're the same person.
Not
Your
necessarily.
your
Because I had
principles may not change, but your views kind of have to change, right?
no,
The weather
no.
changes, the
Just because
people
the weather's
around you
changed doesn't
changes.
mean that changes your view. Okay, I'll give you an example.
Well,
I
climate
have two
change and stuff like that
friends.
may not affect people in certain areas and stuff like that as much as it does in areas where you've got beachfront property and now the ocean's starting to
Mm,
rise. Right, you're going to care more about the ocean rising if you live in Malibu than
right.
you do in
Okay.
Montana.
Right. But okay, yes and no. But yes, I agree with that. But when we recognize that anthropomorphic climate change is actually
Big
the
word,
term anthropomorphic, it means
big word.
man-induced climate change.
Anthropomorphic. Okay,
Anthropomorphic means man-induced climate change.
okay.
So the whole idea that this man-induced climate change, it still affects everybody. It just affects everybody differently. So if I'm living in Texas and I don't live on the beach, yeah, the rising tides in Florida and in California aren't going to affect me. But guess what? Now I'm getting these holy schmoly tornadoes that are coming in.
Sure. More
So,
bugs.
right.
You're not getting your strawberries.
Things are different.
Yeah.
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 So I think it will affect everybody differently.
Mhm.
And so the manifestation of the problem is different, but the problem itself is the same.
But don't you think climate change, and we got kind of off subject? I know they're
I
talking
know,
about still
right?
the popular vote, but we keep diving to this climate change thing. Don't you think climate change was here already before?
Not anthropomorphic climate change.
Not
No.
anthropomorphic because that's man made, but it was here before because how did the Grand Canyons get there? They were
Well,
underwater at one time.
I agree that there's a natural
Sure,
change called evolution.
sure.
I believe that.
Yeah.
But when man himself starts to do things to speed up change
Hmm.
at a rate that
Hmm.
is unnatural,
Yeah.
and you don't get time to shift, to, then that's where it
Mother
becomes
Nature is going to respond to
that's
it.
I mean, look at we have all these glaciers that
Mm,
are melting.
mm.
Glaciers that have been frozen for thousands and thousands of
That's a little
years.
hard for me to believe. And again, I know the scientists have a way of doing that. I personally believe that the glaciers maybe were here in Southern
Mhm.
California because there's a lot of seashells and stuff in the mountains. And then
Mhm.
maybe the North Pole was
Mhm.
barren desert and it
Well, I
just
think
shifted. It
that
could have
also
been.
depends on your biblical views. I believe there really was a flood. So, I believe
Okay.
that's how the shells got here. But okay, I'm just saying that's how the shells got here.
The flood. Oh, I don't want to get into that conversation.
Okay, but okay, we're gonna go. But
Okay.
you know, okay. But there was one other thing that I had to say that I couldn't let go about Trump: sexual harassment. I recently had to have a student moved out of my class for sexually harassing me. So once I mean, you hear about sexual harassment, you're like, you get an idea of what you think it is. But when it happens to you and you have to call a spade, and wow, I've just been sexually harassed,
Mm,
and your mind grapples with that, it gives you a new understanding
mm,
for what people have gone to. So that whole, well, I just walk up to them and I just grab them by the,
yeah.
that before I thought it was vile, I thought it was disgusting in and of itself. But when you've been sexually harassed,
Mhm,
it takes on a new pungent
mm,
odor.
mm.
So yeah, I can't let that one go.
So would you agree that the gentleman who, the teacher, about 6 months ago, who fought his student, who disrespected him, and I guess a student threw a basketball at him and called him a racist name, and he got up and whopped him upside the head a couple of times. Do you think that's appropriate for a teacher to do
No,
under that circumstances?
no.
So in your
He threw a
situation,
basketball at him. You catch a basketball, or even if it hits you in the head,
sometimes you catch it right in the nose on the bunker.
okay,
Basketball
okay.
heavy.
There's a difference between an immediate threat and a threat that's gone. He threw a basketball at you. If that was the end of it, the threat is gone. Now, if he's coming up on you and he's swinging, that's an immediate threat.
No, the threat's not gone because if somebody throws a basket, somebody spits on you.
That's assault.
Okay, somebody throws a basketball at you and hits you in the nose, bonk, and you're like, okay, now you're in front of your whole class with 32 kids looking at you.
But unless they're about to harm you again, they are still not an immediate threat. The
That
threat is gone.
well, that just hey, now we know why I can't be a teacher
I'm just saying.
because I would bada bing, bada bang,
Yeah, and you
bada bing,
well,
bada bang.
yeah,
You
because
can't just because
I'm
once the
not.
basketball was thrown and it
It was
disrespected
assault.
him, the guy who threw the basketball at the teacher,
He assaulted his teacher.
but he set a precedence for all the other kids to
I
see.
agree.
You don't have to
But
respect
he,
this guy anymore. Respect is
yeah,
huge in
but
American culture.
I agree. However, once then the student is punished, if punished properly, that also sends a message.
So you got to wait and see. Oh, let me go and
No,
fill
I'm
out the
not.
paperwork. And
No,
okay,
it shouldn't. It
you're
shouldn't
right.
be that way.
You know you're right. I know you're right. But I'm
Right.
saying I'm
It's
wrong.
it's hard.
But you're gonna
It's
be
hard.
you're gonna
It's hard
be okay.
because as me as a teacher, when certain comments are being made, if we were on the street, I would have punched him in the face.
Right.
But we weren't on the street. We were in the classroom. And so I had to lay my priorities out and I had to choose how I wanted to deal with it.
Name another system that the majority doesn't rule.
I think we all can agree that majority always rules
Mm.
because especially if you're going with the general vote, that's what it is. The majority gets what they voted
So does the
for.
majority rule in America?
The majority who votes. I think another
Good
problem
question.
is that a lot of people don't vote and or can't or can't.
I don't think the majority rule.
You don't.
No. I think
Okay.
this system is set up just like the lady who
Oh, okay.
ran for office in Georgia, and the guy who was supposed to count all the votes was running too, and mysteriously her votes got mixed up, or she got some Chads mixed up, like they did in Florida. I know they weren't Chads,
Right,
but you
but
know what I'm saying.
that's deliberately tampering.
Okay, so my point is the majority doesn't rule, then does it?
Okay.
Mm,
Then let's revise that to say the
okay.
majority does rule
Supposedly,
when
it's done correctly.
when done correctly, the majority will rule.
So everybody.
I agree
So does
with
everybody
that.
agree that the majority should rule, or does everybody
Yes.
agree that
That's
certain
what
people
democracy is.
have our wherewithal to be able to say, you know what, I know what the American people want, so
That's
they can make their call.
dictatorship.
That's dictatorship. That's people living under a crazy.
Yeah.
They have the largest population, so they'd have the biggest influence if you don't have an electoral college. Nope, the electoral college, in my opinion, again, whether I know some people argue to have it, it should be. I think gerrymandering, if I understand it correctly, would be able to resolve that issue because it's changed so much to fit their profile anyway of how they want to win. So it's like, okay, we didn't get enough people over in this district, so we're just going to draw the circle around them, include them next time. So that's the way of doing it. But the electoral college, to me, the way I've seen it described or seen it work, is that if a majority rules and we're like, we all want, pizza tonight. Somebody come in with the
I don't think
electoral
you should have
college.
the pizza.
Says,
I'm
yeah,
deciding we're having
we're gonna
hamburger.
change it.
Hamburger.
That's not cool. That's
You're
not
eating
that
hamburger.
yeah, we're taught to think of on our own, a lot when you're young. So how can you how I shouldn't say how can you believe. It's hard for me to understand how the electoral college could benefit us as a community. That's my statement.
And if we want to go with what Harvey is saying, the
Mhm.
electoral college is actually allowing what you're talking about in the fact that California, Ohio, and Florida are controlling the presidential election because they carry more electoral votes. So essentially, what we're seeing is what you're describing, but I think would be alleviated with general vote.
If it was done properly, we wouldn't
If
need the
done
electoral vote.
correct,
Okay,
we should have popular vote.
popular vote.
One vote and that's it. Just like when we vote for mayor,
Mm.
we're voting for popular vote.
Yeah, but it's changed so much to fit so many different people's idea of how their office or their district should be ran and maintained. So we got to change it this way, and I just think it's all BS. I really do,
Mm,
because it doesn't benefit us. So I think we beat that to death with a
okay.
little bit that we know.
So we're on music.
So now we're on the music,
Last
y'all.
topic of the day, music. So
Did you notice in Trump's song that he picked for his TV show when he did the
I didn't watch his TV show. I have to honestly say I've never liked him.
I liked Trump
I
at one
don't
time.
like
Don't
him.
get me.
I never liked
I
him.
never knew Trump,
Never liked
obviously,
him.
but
The
what everybody
persona,
liked, yeah,
the
of course,
persona that
everybody
he
did.
projects,
Everybody wanted Trump, Trump,
oh
Trump.
nope, not
Everybody,
me. You can hold
we
that.
wanted Trump. Go. We wanted all that.
Okay,
Now we
if
know who he is.
I can disavow that statement can't be true because you say everybody and I'm saying I didn't, so therefore that statement there cannot be true.
Everybody who was a sucker. How about that?
Okay.
Okay.
I know sucker.
OJ's For the Love of Money.
For the love of money.
He picked that as his theme song.
That doesn't surprise me.
Ain't that crazy?
It doesn't surprise me. Well, if you watch someone, they will tell you who they are. Don't let them verbally tell you who they are.
Watch
Let their
actions.
actions show you who they are.